How are you today?
We don't know. Do we ever really know?
We don't. As a new Minnesota resident, and just kind of find out what is the Domme life like here in Minnesota.
Yeah. What is the Domme life like in Minnesota? To be very transparent, it's kind of like non-existent.
Oh.
And yeah, it's a bit non-existent. And, I'm not gonna lie, I felt like I went through a period where I had to clear my entire roster. And I did that because I had a handful of, guys that I was dealing with. I did have a sub, also going exploring the dating scene. So put it like this. In New York, I feel like people are a bit more open and liberal. So even if you meet a guy in New York or on the East Coast that he has no experience with like kink stuff, he'd probably be open to it a bit, willing to try something. Whereas with here, it's so far-fetched that I feel like it could kind of like scare guys away that may be more vanilla. Vanilla, by the way, it's more like traditional guys that's not like into the kink stuff. So I would say, so it's very black or white here, whereas on the East Coast, people are more explorative. But here, it's either they're into it or they're not, so you can't really blend or blur the lines there. But however, the men that are into the lifestyle, they are very into it. But I like how it doesn't have to be hardcore Dom stuff. So I feel that in Minnesota, even the kink scene or the submissive men, you can find men that are okay with like soft Dom. They're not strictly looking for hardcore getting their ass whooped. They're looking for something Dom-esque, kink-esque, but more a little bit vanilla-esque. An example of that is right up my alley, because one thing about me, I love to have like the house slave. I love even like a self-care slave, comes in, takes care of the home, cooks, clean, massage your feet, make sure like you're fed. And they worship your feet, so that is the dynamic. It's very natural, it's just works, versus on the East Coast, it feels a bit more like a hardcore session. Like the men on the East Coast, they really need one to get stepped on. And with here, I find that they're okay with just laying by your feet. It's more common here versus in New York, it's uncommon.
Backtrack just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, you mentioned that you actually had to get rid of or you dropped some of your subs that were here. So I was just wondering if you can just elaborate on a little bit more, especially with you stating that it's non-existent here. I would think, you would probably hold on or keep or point me in the right direction, kind of into more subs, So what was your thought process as far as dropping your current subs, to, I guess, gain more in a non-existent?
Yeah, so yes, one would assume that because the kink arena is almost kind of like non-existent or very low-key, so it would make sense to kind of hold on to whatever have you. But me, I'm very uncompromising. If one doesn't work, I'm gonna get another one, and if I cannot find another one, that's just gonna be that. We will be at a standstill until further notice. But I just felt that so that sub in particular, I did have a little special place in my life for him. But because he came at like a perfect time, I was new here and he came at the perfect time and kind of helped, make me get settled in. He helped me get some of the basic needs that I needed for like my apartment, especially with me moving and being unprepared for the winter. So he was very supportive in that sense, but he was not as emotionally available as I would have preferred. Also, he was not as just physically available to me. So I would say I'm a bit spoiled when it comes to quality time and availability. And on the East Coast, I always dealt with men where I knew I could call them at any given time for anything that I needed. I would always have like a card or some type of money, some resource, financial resource in case of anything. And that was very helpful because it's these men knowing that I'm a woman that always have money, but sometimes shit just happens, right? And I think that generally that's the type of support from men or people that I love, that I really value. So, and I felt that the things that I truly valued with in a dynamic, I was not able to get that. So yes, I love that he provided for me at his convenience, but what I really needed was someone to be supportive at my time of convenience, because it was almost like there were things that were popping up and I just couldn't get the support that I needed. And I think that's something that's more valued to me, opposed to just needing someone that's available for play, right? Like so it was something about that. And also too, when you're like in survival mode, it's hard to play. It's hard to play. So think about moving in a place where it's fucking, I don't know what the fuck it was, but it's not having basic socialization. As you guys know, I was struggling to get service. That's a whole different discussion. I was having issues navigating the space, the place I was living in. It was lots of weird, unprofessional things going on. We're not going to use that R word, but some may say that it is. And on top of that too, even with the Domme scene, it was a big disconnect there, along with the culture shock of Minnesota. So it felt like between the language barrier, oh, give me a second. Oh my God, there's something in my eye. Oh my God, it's something directly on my fucking contact.
Don't you hate that?
Yes, I do. And this is not normal. Oh, cause this shit finna boom flick out my motherfucking eye. God damn it. What the fuck was that? Okay, I guess we're just gonna, oh my God, this is bad for fucking business because, and fast forward, we lost out of touch and we kind of rekindled somehow and things were going well, but the same issue that came up in the beginning where I felt like when I wanted something or asked for something, it was an issue, but the only time I'd have access to him to engage, it was at his, so that right there in itself, for anyone that know me, I understand. I'm controlling, okay? The way I'm controlling, I don't even need to control something. I just set the standard and the boundaries and see if you can make it. And if one cannot, that's it, right? So for me, I don't like also feeling like things are out of control. So there's something about someone not really making themselves available to me, but I'm making myself available to them. That makes me feel like there's a lack of control sense on my end. And I feel like with the Dom sub lifestyle, that is a problem as a Dom, when you cannot control your subject. And if they're signing up to be controlled, but yet there's a lot of boundaries around my ability to control them, it's not for me. This is not what they want. And that's why I had to get rid of it. So next question. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and also too, if you're watching this, you're on timeout. You're on timeout. Many Doms tend to make their subs pay to be unblocked. I don't even give them that option. Because it's never about the money. So yeah, there's that.
The difference in your subs, whether it be East Coast versus the Midwest.
The subs on the East Coast, they have less insecurities with money. They're a lot more generous. Significantly more generous. They're a lot more willing to spend their money because the biggest insecurity is finding someone that you can actually mesh with, right? And someone you can trust. And I think for me personally, for anyone that knows me, just by nature, everything from what I do, who I am, and profession, there's a lot of trust that comes there inherently. So if you're built as a symbol of trust, right, and we already know that this is a business thing, so a man would have to be vulnerable or willing to be okay with financially supporting someone, or he shouldn't have those boundaries around his money if you're really giving it to get what you want to receive. So I find that it's very easy to have that seamless transactional stuff. I feel like it's so much easier to kind of have like a seamless transactional process on the East Coast because the men aren't worried or shy about their money. they're just really simply looking for someone that they mesh well with. Versus in the Midwest, I can tell that they had a lot of insecurities with money, because everyone would initially start off with, I'm okay with everything except for Findom. Like, a lot of men would indicate up front that they're not here for Findom stuff. And in my mind, I'm just like, okay, you have issues with money. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a Findom, but one thing about me, you're going to spend your money. You know what I mean? So I don't have to demand money or put up in the forefront, oh, you better have money to deal with me. But it's implied. So whenever someone comes to me with this insecurity about, oh, I could do everything but this, I'm like, oh, he has insecurities with money. And I find that that's a very common thing. Another thing that was quite disturbing is being like a Black woman and having men reach out to me, with requests to do business with me, or even be like my sub and all these types of things. So I would ask basic questions about their financial situation and their level of attachment, as in, do you have wife and kids that you need to be taken care of? I would ask them, are you in a financial position to engage in leisure play? Are you in a position to have basically like a girlfriend, or to be, supporting someone else? Because time is money. I value my time, you value your money. So we need to make sure that if you're going to be spending it, do you even have it available, right? So it was very interesting where I would have men reach out to me, and at this point, I told them I'm not into the professional aspect, but I am open to subs. So in general, you would have to be sure that you're in a financial situation there. And their immediate response were very reactive in a very negative way. And this would be very evident by the backlash or the derogatory terms or negative things that they would say, such as, you're just trying to take my money. I was looking at men reaching out to me with requests to be my submissive, while simultaneously claiming I'm just here for their money. These were men that I can very well tell for face value that I made significantly more money than them. Just like my day job in itself. As a therapist, these are men I can very well tell that I made more money than. So at that point, it was like them approaching me. It was never about the money, because they couldn't really have enough to provide for me. But I just wanted to see how generous they are, how giving that they are. Do they have insecurities around money? Because you're going to spend money nonetheless. But what I don't want is for it to be feeling like pulling teeth, right? I don't want to deal with that. You see what I'm saying? So I would say that's a difference. So because of that, I've limited my access to subs here in the Midwest. At this point, if I'm just kind of dating in a more traditional sense, and I just let the men know that I'm dealing with that this is what I'm into. Are you open with exploring? One could say maybe I'm turning them out a little bit, but I can't say that because I haven't done it yet, but it's coming. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
So you said a couple of things that were pretty interesting, and I guess I would like to ask this question for people who are new to dominatrix and the fact that you said that it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So my first question is, when you said, hey, there are men here that do not like femdoms.
Findom. I said financial dominatrix.
Femdoms.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you said fem as in FEM-doms, and I'm like, okay, what are the different categories in this lifestyle? Can you please explain those?
Yeah.
First?
So there's different types of kinks in, I guess you can say, we call it kink scene, or I call it dom scene because I'm a dominant and it's my arena. But long story short, there is different types of kinks and different types of fetishes. And along with that, I personally do archetypes, where I feel like the type of archetype of person you are kind of speaks to your kind of kinks. But I would say general kink is, we have femdom. That's the traditional, latex. When anyone thinks about the traditional BDSM, that is femdom. That's a dominant feminine woman. We think of latex, we think of corsets, we think about hot tying you. And then we also have Findom, F-I-N, is short for financial dominatrix. There's actually quite a few. And we think about pet play. So the different type of kinks tend to be categorized by the type of play. So we have the pet type of kinks, we have traditional worship, but I would say for anyone that's in the lifestyle, we just say, oh, they're into BDSM, and they tell us what they're into, what their fetish is. And then also we have like larger archetypes, like or categories such as, let's say, black female supremacy. I would say some big categories is Findom, Femdom, black female supremacy, mommy dom, daddy dom. That's more like the gentle type of dom style. So there's like different types of vibes. I would consider the categories more like vibes, different type of play vibes and themes. So yeah, I would say for me, I'm more operating under black female supremacy, because I feel like it's almost just understanding that as a black woman, I am a goddess first, right? So however you want to idolize me or talk about whatever you want to categorize me as, whether it's strong, independent, dominant, and highly intelligent, beautiful, baddie, whatever you want to call these terms, I just see it as you're just seeing a manifestation of my personal power. Here, how that would look is just being a goddess. I feel like if for anyone that understands the power of a black woman from a personal place, right, that is just simply being a goddess. And, you know, we like to factor in, I am a very spiritual person. Yeah, so, you know, I try to operate in a way where it's very authentic to who I am. So to, you know, honor black female supremacy, that category for me as a dom means to put in the forefront that I'm spiritual, I'm powerful, I'm clairvoyant, I'm intelligent, eloquent. All these things that make me who I am. I am nurturing, I am a woman, I am soft. The degree to which I can be feminine, I can also be masculine. All these things make me who I am. I think that is a representation of me being a goddess, hence the black female supremacy. I hope that explains it.
It does. Thank you so much for the elaboration. Now, the other follow-up question that I did want to ask is, again, we talk about it being a lifestyle, and when you are getting requests for submissives, right? And you ask the questions like, hey, do you have the financial wherewithal to even, you know, to even play?
Yeah.
Correct? So then my question is, you know, do you get a bi-weekly check? Is it
how do we get paid,
like,
right?
How do you get paid? How does that work? Like, is it like just give me your card, or you know, like
don't you wish you could be
file
that
taxes
easy?
on it? You know, like how does this work?
So because I am, you know, I operate from like a very goddess stance, I feel that it's almost like you have to be in a place where you're dealing with people that already kind of worship you, support you. You don't have to ask for anything because they're always assessing to see your needs. They're very intuitive. These are very masculine men that are naturally providers. So it's almost like just being affiliated with them, they anticipate what I might need. So I would say right now, the caliber of men that I deal with, even if we all go out and we're, you know, at a party or a lounge or something, he would, you know, allow me to, like, you know, go off, wander, have fun with my girlfriends. I feel safe. You know, he keeps an eye on me. If I need anything, occasionally he'll send like a waitress over to check on me and my girls to see if there's anything that we need. If I tell him, you know, hey, I'm tired of this spot, I want to go someplace else to eat, but, you know, he has to stay because there's other people there he has to entertain. Yeah, he would just, you know, give me money or send me money in my Cash App and say, hey, just let me know where you're going, and you know, just let me know if you need anything. He'll just give me some cash randomly. So I never really ask these men for money. And sidebar, when it comes to Minnesota, a very harsh lesson I had to learn was, Minnesota's a place that you have to let things happen for you. You can't quite ask for what you need. But I found that crying for them silently behind closed doors, somehow they found their way to me. So there's something about the Minnesota air where it's very hard to ask for what you want, but that's what makes it so important to be around people that just understand you well enough. You don't have to ask for anything. They already know what's needed, so it's given. Also, it creates a safe space to even make requests, right? So it's almost like dealing with the kind of guy where you don't have to worry about what you wanna. You don't have to worry about asking for something or any of that, because they're already opening their self to you. So at this point, you're just seeing what's available, and then you can pick or take from what you need. I don't get money from them. I don't have a card, but I'm not gonna lie, on the East Coast, they would give you cards. Like the men on the East Coast, they honestly, they don't even want you to ask. They just said, hey, just let me know what you need, or they'll find out you spend money and say how much was it, and then reimburse you immediately. That's how East Coast men work, you know what I mean? They gonna give you cash in hand, right? But here in Minnesota, the men, you don't just leave your wallet at home. There's something about that. Men in Minnesota, just leave your wallet at home. I never have to pay anything on the East Coast, but I still be bringing my wallet, because you want to walk with your fuck you money. You know what I mean? Because the men, they always trying to fuck you, so you want to walk with your fuck you money. You know what I mean? But over here, you can leave your wallet at home, and when you're ready to go, and say, get me an Uber right now. Just make sure you have an Uber money. That's how it's. Call me an Uber right now. Sometimes me and the guy be on a standoff. You're gonna call the Uber because you have 5 seconds to call it before I call it. You gotta throw in to call the Uber, okay? And what's up with men in Minnesota? Never in my life have I have never heard this quote so much. You leaving me? These men love to ask, are you leaving me? Yes, I am leaving you. They be asking, you leaving the party? It be like, I've been with you the whole entire day. You leaving me? You be having a long conversation that you leaving me? They be texting you what you doing all day. And the minute you get with them and it's like, you leave? Yes, I pay rent too. I pay rent. Let me go live in my rent. Sorry, part of a little tangent, but just in case you ladies aren't knowing, yeah. So by the way, look, they're very generous here. People have a very different relationship with money. So if you're around men that are not really spending, or they seem kind of stingy, that scarcity mindset, please get away from it, because that is very fucking weird in a land of abundance. Minnesota is a land of abundance. So when people have that scarcity mindset, it's giving crabs. Get away from it. That's just me. Pardon me, but that's just me. My personal opinion. Don't fight me, or you can. What's up? Sorry.
So, Venus.
Ooh, maybe I should have a little drink.
So while you take this sip,
Yes.
how
Latte.
do you feel you are received here in the kink community?
Ooh. Accusations, false accusations. They be accusing me of wanting money. Sidebar. But how am I received in the kink community? I think that idolized. I feel like I'm a bit more idolized here. They don't have a lot of doms, or the kink scene or kink arena is not as developed as it ought to be, or as it should be, the way in which it is on the West Coast or the East Coast. It's the Midwest, so things are a bit, still developing. So how I'm received here, I feel it's from a place of like more personal power. I think they appreciate me for who I am as like a woman speaking about these things. They recognize me as a psychotherapist. I realize a lot of them like the idea of kink therapy, not just someone really whooping their ass, but being able to sit down, talk about the things that really concern them about their sexuality and how they can kind of navigate it. So, I would say I'm received more as like an intellectual goddess, per se, you know what I mean? I'm, on the East Coast, these men have fantasies of sleeping with you. They tend to sexualize you. I think men are going to sexualize me no matter what. But I think over here, there's a different level of respect that's automatically given. They're not as directly, overtly aggressive. They fetishize you, but in a way that says, I'm not trying to have sex with you. I think that's disrespectful. I think I'm only worthy of maybe massaging your feet and just bringing you things. They're a bit more guarded and conservative with the more sexual aspects. of the kink, versus on the East Coast it's like all powerful dominant woman. Like, you guys see my steez last year, like the setting is very different. But over here I think I'm received more intellectually versus sexually. It's different.
So thank you for that. Now, as you were speaking, what came to mind, and follow me with my thought process here, okay?
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Okay.
Okay, so what came to mind is when I think about people in the sex work industry, right? They tend to kind of travel to where, you know, that is most lucrative, right? So like, for example, I hear a lot of like dancers or strippers would, you know, if it's Super Bowl weekend, they know they gotta go to that city, you know, to get money and things of that nature. Now, I do recall you saying that it's not about the money with you, but is it common, or have you traveled to certain areas? Like, was Minnesota a reason to be here because of the kink community?
Ooh.
And was there something that you were looking for specifically? And do you plan to travel to other areas where goddess doms are super lucrative? You know, even though it's not about, but who, you know,
but who
work
doesn't want to
smarter,
like
not
maximize
harder.
it, right? Yeah.
Work smarter, not harder, right?
Absolutely.
So, like, what is your thought process as far as that, or how do you see that within yourself?
Yeah. So, and it's so interesting because when I first discovered Minnesota and I started visiting here since last year, and I was telling people about the kind of money I was making. Everyone thought that I was making money as a dom, when in reality I came here with nothing but my voice, and I came here just my foot straight. I'm gonna clip this motherfucker out anyway. Initially I came into Minnesota to kind of just do content creation. Like, I was literally coming here for about 2 times a month, like maybe almost bi-weekly, and I'd come here, get an Airbnb, and I would just be on like TikTok, Instagram, all the social media platforms, and I was creating content. And what was happening was I was getting a lot of clients from online, whether it be like therapy or spirituality. I realized what really brought me to Minnesota was like this niche and this need for Black women in particular, and I felt like women in general. And then also because like mental health is such a huge thing here and it's in such high demand, I think that it was me coming here and realizing that there was a need for my skill. There was a need for my service. And what I was spending my time doing was just creating content, talking about a lot of controversial issues and speaking to like mental health issues. And then I started to get a lot of clients. So my base was really built off of coming to Minnesota and connecting with women. So initially, as being a dom, my platform was really kind of centered around men to a degree, or I'm positioned where I'm in the forefront, but I have men centering me to a degree. So it's almost like a very like male orientation, but coming to Minnesota kind of reshift my focus because now I had a demand for what I had to offer as a person from like my personal power, but to women. So yeah, coming to Minnesota was primarily for my personal power and as like a therapist. And I didn't really build much off of like the dom community or kink community. It was not until I moved here in January from getting a job offer as a clinical director that led me to kind of be more open this time around. But what made me come here was not the kink community. It was a need for women and mental health community here. So fast forward, that was different because it was making a lot of money just doing basic things. And at the same time, it was me acknowledging that I'm in the Midwest and I can still be a dom, but then also I was always in the back of my mind aware that there are other places where you can go as a dom and you can make lots of money, such as Silicon Valley. So so to answer the question around, is there like a place where people can go? So I think that everyone's power is different. If you're built a certain way, and you're well received. Kind of like, you can be like, I can be like a 2 in Miami and be a fucking 10 in New York, right? I can be like a 2 here and be a 10 over there on the West Coast. And it just really depends on how you're positioned altogether. So what I've noticed for a woman like me, where I feel like a lot of my energy as a dom is more intellectually driven, maybe even spiritually driven. I've noticed, like, even with women in the spirituality sense, I tend to attract women from the West Coast that's like spiritual based or astrology based, whereas with the men, they highly value intellectual capacity and connection. So yes, I've had some clients, potential submissives, that reached out to me from the West Coast. Of course, you know, that didn't become of anything, but there was a time I was considering going to California, San Francisco, Silicon Valley, to kind of explore the dom community. But that is so tricky because it's not something you just go out there and do alone. I'm pretty sure there's big money, but because I'm not so focused on money right now, I think that what would bring me there is almost wanting to experiment on new territory. Like, what would it be like to kind of dominate the men in Silicon Valley? I know it'd be less physical and more intellectual, so that's pretty interesting. I see that as more of like a challenge, versus in New York, these men have no problem bleeding. It's called love marks, if you ask me. You know, so it's different. Maybe the men on the Silicon Valley, they want to be more control dominated, based on my experience. And, you know, I think Black women, it's almost like a small niche, just not many women like me. But at the same time, I know that it's not uncommon for a woman like me to be over there. So yeah, there's that. I do know a couple women in high profile positions that do have their handful of subs. They are BIPOC, they are Black women, it's not just white women. And there is like a piece of everything. There's something for everyone, not only the dom community, but I find in places where it's a lot more intelligence for social diversity. So like, that'll be the East Coast and the West Coast. They'll look at you as like how you're entirely positioned. They're not just looking at beauty, because everyone could be easy on the eyes, but they're looking at everything, the entire package. How you speak, how's your mind different? Are you a free thinker? What is the package giving? It's not just about being a pretty face. It's about what the package is giving. So the more unique you are, you have more of an advantage. And I feel like that right there is something I would love to experiment with on the West Coast sometime. But yeah, I hope that answers the question. Yeah. Yeah, shout out to the West Coast. I might visit one day. If there's any West Coast subs interested, talk to me. I wanna get a feel for you guys. Comment below or send me an email. I wanna see what the vibe is like. Talk nice to me. Be a good boy. Okay.
What is the most common fetish here in Minnesota?
I feel like a lot of like worshiping, a lot of acts of service oriented kinks. The men love to please, and I've noticed that I feel like what's very common is, maybe, I want to say worshiping, because what would worshiping look like? It's almost like serving a goddess. When we think about, even if you have like an example of what that looks like in the movies, it's anything from giving her a bath, cleaning her home, massaging her feet. A lot of massages. I think if you, just one thing you're gonna get for sure is a fucking massage here. You're gonna get a massage. They gonna be massaging something. They're gonna be massaging something. Okay. Yeah. So back to what I was saying. Yeah, I would say worshiping. Worshiping is like a big fetish here, and you know, even though I'm still doing some exploring here, I do notice that it's very easy to find more of like a soft doming type of engagement. You'll definitely get a guy that would have no problem coming over, just massaging your feet, worshiping. I'm just gonna say worshiping. You ladies know all types of worshiping, so pick a body part, they'll do it. It don't matter what it is. And the ones that are here, the submissives, I noticed that it's you'll find men where they have a lot of experience, or you'll find men that have like next to like no experience, like almost like no experience. I haven't found much in between. Whereas in New York, I feel like it's almost like that culture where everyone might try something once, or might be open to do it at least once, and you don't find that. I feel like, I would say they're a little bit behind, but the community is still developing. So you find people with that's either really experienced or people that just have no experience at all. So it's a lot more green territory, which is no problem for me. But the downside to that is you might need to have more time to train your subs. And for me, I prefer someone experienced. At least while, this is like new territory for me. If I was in New York, I'd probably be open to like more green subs. Not here. I'm a bit green with the culture in general, so that would be a good fit. So yeah, maybe in the future. That's just for right now though.
How do you see yourself navigating the kink scene? Do you have any specific plans?
It looks like I'm gonna have to create the scene because there is not much of a scene here. Yeah, and a lot of these boys have been bad, and I feel like that right there is gonna make me create a scene. So I've been thinking about if what I want is not quite openly available here, it looks like I'm just gonna have to create it. And so for me, I think about creating a community, opening up a dungeon, opening up a kink therapy practice, opening up anything to let's say hypothetically a House of Venus, opening up a space where people that know me, that know what I represent, I would have something that would essentially be an extension of that, physically available or even virtually available. Because to be honest, I just don't see enough here, or enough to even work with. And also too, perhaps I'm just dealing with a culture shock, but at the same time, Minnesota is very cliquey. It's almost like you can't gain access to certain things or communities unless someone can pull you in. And that right there, it creates a huge boundary or challenge, in trying to navigate the kink scene. Whereas in New York, all you gotta do is stumble upon it and people could check your vibe out. It's like, I like the vibe, he passed the vibe check, let's let him in. But here, it's almost like vibes can't even cut it. Vibes can't even cut it. It's like who you know in the building, and even when you enter the building, it's almost like they treat you like you're not from around here, and it's like, duh. But I'm never gonna be able to assimilate as if I'm from around here unless someone lets me in, right? Teach me your ways. So put it like this, I'm just gonna create my own space, my own community, and see what happens and becomes of that, because otherwise it would just basically I would need to take a break from being a dom here and hanging up. And of course that's no issue. I'm a lifestyle dom, so one thing about me, I'm gonna do me regardless. But when I think about allowing myself to share some of what I have to the world, I just don't see how physically easy that might be here unless I create it here. So yeah, I think we'll just have to see what happens. I'll keep you guys posted if anything becomes of that, but that's really what it is, to be honest.
So you mentioned kink therapy.
Yeah.
Please, my ears perked up when you said that.
Yes.
Please can you give us an example or a further explanation or elaboration on what kink therapy is?
Yeah, so I would like to consider myself a purveyor of liberating experiences. And when we think about how liberating, getting connected with your sexuality is, I think about the kink dynamics that can also go hand in hand with therapy. So when we think of kink therapy, we think about kink dynamics, everything from, BDSM to, the therapeutic aspects that could come up that would create issues for you to play. We think about issues with your sexuality, sexuality issues that pertains to your mental health. We think about how your mental health is impacted because of your sexuality, that's a number one thing when it comes to men in particular. And we also think about women that may struggle with mental health issues because of their own mentality. Let's think about how society tends to condition women to oppress them around their sexuality. And a lot of these women are depressed because they're not getting fucked. That's the reality. Let's get into that. In fact, it's the fact that I'm not even getting fucked. Y'all got, like, let me tell y'all something. Y'all got 2 months to be a good fucking boy, because if someone does not get selected from these fucking streets, I'm telling you this right now, I will go to it and become fucking Harley Quinn. So, with that being said, that's another thing we need to get into with Minnesota. And, you know, I don't think much people are getting fucked here, but then again, they do. It's something so random. But at the same time, I think about the level of safety that's needed for people to have sex consistently, to have their needs met so they don't have to be in survival mode and like being like a little fucking chihuahua, right? Like, that is insane. So, you know, when I think about just navigating the arena here, and we think about the issues that come up, I think of kink therapy. I think about the issues that come up with sexuality and kink that get out of your control, and we think about how that's not something that people tend to bring up in therapy. And, you know, yeah. So I hope that answers the question, but maybe I might consider that. What do you guys think about that? Kink therapy, do we want to do live streams? Do you guys want to bring your kink issues and we talk about it, you know, out in the open? That'll be very interesting. Get y'all ready for the winner.
So we talked about, you know, the most common fetish here in Minnesota, but do you personally have a favorite fetish?
I love me a good parrot. And I love me a houseboy. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, whenever I have a slave, I probably opt for the ones that can fetch very well. When I say fetch very well, we think about the men or people that have attention to detail. They just get it. They, you know, very intuitive. So I think about the fetishes. Black female supremacy, right? Goddess worship. That's a whole category. But when we think about the archetype of men that would be most suitable for someone that operates under black female supremacy, we think about the housemaid. We think about a puppy. We think about like a traditional house slave, one that can do well. He gives butler vibes. And also too, he's just good with like self-care. You know, these subs, like the sub that I had, like he was very well trained for black women. Like this guy can even take out weaves. This guy can cut out your weave. This guy can cut out your weave. He ain't cut mine out though, but I seen his work. He does it. And yeah, and he was great with his hands. So it's attention to detail and how trainable they are. So yeah, I would say that's the most common kink. I'm pretty sure there are others, but that's what's been coming up for me in my exposure.
But is that your favorite?
Is that my favorite? Yes. It is so my favorite. It's my go-to. It's what really makes this a lifestyle for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about your favorite fetish, is this also your favorite type of sub as well? Mm-hmm. Would that be considered kind of like the same?
Yeah, that absolutely would be. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you describe what your Domme fantasy is?
Oh my God. Woo child. It's so crazy. When people think, what's your fantasy? Like, I don't even watch porn. Nothing's wrong with porn, but my imagination is so like active that at this point I'm creating gods in my mind. And we're having orgies with no penetration. It sounds insane, but like the ideal fantasy is for me to just be centered by like 5 men and no one gets to like penetrate me. It's just purely body worship. It's just me being centered, just, you know, maybe, you know, there's obviously some play, but when I think about maintaining some sense of purity and also teasing to some degree, I think about being with 5 men and not allowing them to release themselves. They are here to completely just serve me, and make sure that I get the full experience. And yeah, I think they all get a body part. One at my feet, one at the other feet, one massaging my shoulders, even my fucking palms, I want them to be fucking massaging. You know what I mean? And another person just uses his head and just, do whatever he does, and life's great. And then, they just all like unanimously just line up and exit the room. And then and then someone else comes in to kind of just clean me up and lift me up and put me in the tub because they've already prepared like my bath water. And then someone just gives me a sponge bath. Oh my God, fucking sponge bath. And he cleans my feet with his mouth. There's just this whole fantasy, I feel like if I don't get it, I swear to God, I'm gonna need like a director. Someone need to shoot it for me. I'm gonna need actors ASAP, because I need to get it out my head. I need to be able to see it, okay? But we could just make it happen. A girl could dream. Or another one too, one of my top fantasies, I just want my pussy on a plate. There's something about, I have this fantasy of getting head on a plane. I would love for a guy to just treat me like I am dinner on a plane. I just want to be dinner on a plane. Yes, a private plane. I want it to be very uncomfortable, where he has to clear out all like the staff and the people and tell them, go sit up in the front in the cockpit. Sit on the pilot's lap if you must, because I want to eat my woman. And then I also think about wild things like, I don't know what it is, but I think I like to be watched, even though I never allow myself to really be watched. And maybe it's slightly like that cucking fetish, but there's something about publicly allowing a man to please me, but with limitations, and them being able to maintain that sense of respect. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to see a guy keep his composure while I'm just having an orgasm. I want him to appear very unfazed. There's something about that. I just want all these things to happen, and maybe they will, but I just know for a fact that that's at one trending fantasy, having the pussy ate on it. I want to be dinner on a plane. That's a very common one for me. And just being pleased and served. So yeah, none of the fantasies are quite like sex, but it's like sensual and kinky by nature. You know what I mean? That's what really does it for me.
So you mentioned being a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
And we are also in the kink community. In what ways do you feel like you're living a double life?
Yeah, it's by design in how my life is so compartmentalized in like the roles that I juggle. I do feel like I am living a double life to a degree. And it's being in management position, running a facility. It's also seeing patients as a therapist on the side, because it's what I do primarily. And then it's being like a social media influencer, and I try to still do what I can for the community. So it's so much roles. Like, who I am during the day, it's very different from who I am in the evening to who I am even at night, because I feel like at night, in the evenings, I'm more of like an influencer, but during the day, I'm like someone's boss and someone's manager and someone's therapist, so yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Like, how my life is designed does make me feel like it's the quintessential double life.
Are you currently dating? And if so, how does being in the kink community affect your love life?
So I would say, because I feel like it's kind of compartmentalized a bit for me, I don't feel like being a part of the kink community affects my dating life. So I feel like, because both are kind of like compartmentalized, I don't feel like one impacts the other. I would say, if anything, me as a dom, if I'm dating if I'm dating someone that's like, more vanilla or more like dating in traditional sense, sometimes I do disclose what I am, or what I do, or what I'm into, but I probably introduce that somewhere down the line when we're more comfortable with each other. Other times, let's say if like someone reaches out to me, like through social media or email seeking to kind of like be like a sub, that's one separate thing. And right now I don't have any subs, but in general, yes, I am dating. And I don't see how being a dom impacts that. And I'm usually pretty much upfront or very transparent. So it's just a matter of introducing my partner or the person I'm dating to that aspect of me. And so far, it hasn't created any issues. Yeah.
Okay. And what qualities do you value in a person that you are dating?
Ooh. So my love language is acts of service. So what I truly value is like someone being there, being able to like handle the things that, I feel like I probably wouldn't have the time or money to do it. And usually if you don't have time, hopefully you have money so you can kind of like get someone, to handle the shit for you that you don't have the time to do. So I would say acts of service, quality time, gifts, like those are like my top 3 love languages. And I would say that's what I tend to value in like someone I'm dating. Also being open-minded. I really value someone that's open-minded. So let's just say even if someone isn't as experienced, but is the fact that their openness to exploring or, being judgment-free of something different. I like that. Yeah, the mentality around that is very important to me.
With you, exploring the kink community within the Midwest, and with it being more conservative than it is on the East Coast, are there any misconceptions that you'd like to clear up where maybe it will free more minds, open more minds here to where it could be more of a prevalent thing versus something that's still taboo?
Right. Ooh, interesting. I feel like, I don't know why I want to say money. There's something about that. So number one, some things I would like to clear up is I don't, there's something about accusing women of wanting to take your money while you're reaching out for services. There's something slightly misogynistic. Now, for me, it's, someone accusing me, a Black woman, of, trying to take their money even though you're actively reaching out for a service. There's something slightly, that R word, something very racy about that. And while you guys might be racing to have your needs met, there's something very weird with this scarcity around not wanting to, release the money that would allow you to receive what you truly want. So I would say, understand this. Any Black women that you're looking for, like any Black dom, please do not assume that they want your money. It needs to be implied that you should be giving your money, okay? But in a place where money is so abundant and like connection is so scarce, it's very disappointing that like your biggest concern is someone taking your money. There's something very weird about that. And I would like for you guys to do better in not like contaminating people with that type of perspective, because it's very discouraging, because everyone wants to play. A kink is a kink and people are into like exploring, but when you come in with this issue around being vulnerable around money, now it creates this unsafe space where now another person that's really there to play and understand that money is the boundary, now they feel unsafe to play with you, because while they're here to play, right, and they could choose anyone, it's you playing games with your money, and money is just a boundary because both of you ultimately will be playing. So that's what I wanted to clear up, and that's just because of my own experience. But I noticed that was very prevalent here. So I want you guys to be able to do better. It's a bit uncanny. I'm quite disappointed. It's weird, but I know that you guys are going through late, learning phases, and the Midwest is still also navigating their way through the kink community, but please cut it the fuck out. It's giving peasantry, it's giving beneath me, it's giving beyond me, it's giving like, do better. Do better. That's it. Do better. I'll teach you guys how if you're really interested, but please make better decisions. But yeah.
I love it. I love it. So do you mind elaborating on what your sexual orientation is?
Ooh, that is so tricky. It should be tricky. So technically, I think I would consider myself bisexual, even though I think that I may have preference for men, but I do have experiences with women. I've never been in a relationship with women. I've only been in a relationship with a man. Would I be in a relationship with a woman? Yes. It's not something I've pursued. That's a lie. I've actually, dated women, but this was like in undergrad. But I would say as an adult, like maybe within the 5 to 6, 7 years, I have not dated a woman. That'd be interesting. I think I'm a bit fluid. Because I think I'd even date someone trans. For me, it's really vibes. It's really off of connection, you know, or even like someone like pansexual, someone who's androgynous. Like, for me, it's just like how it presents. But let's say if I were to date women, I really like women that are just very feminine. Like, I would date a woman that's like me, just woman in her femininity, and you know, there's that. But at the same time, I've seen some trans, you know what I mean? And you know, trans woman or trans man, like either one, you know what I mean? So I feel like it boils down to connection and vibes for me. Sometimes like your heart or your soul just connects with people, and there is this attraction that just develops like organically. So technically I would say my sexual orientation is bisexual, technically.
Yeah. I like the term fluid, you know. It prevents you from being in a box, right?
Yeah.
So even with you asking, you know, what's your sexual orientation, it's me saying, hey, what box do you belong to?
Right.
And I thought it was pretty perfect that you said, I mean, if you want to put me in a box,
Yeah.
it's
here the box go.
right? But actually, I'm all of the above. You know what I mean?
I'm down with all the letters. You know what I mean? Walk past the vibe check.
Right. So I appreciate the elaboration on that. And finally, you know, usually when you think of dominatrix, right? You think submissive men to women, right? Have you ever had a female sub? And if so, or if not, is this something likely to happen within the community?
It is. And I would say, yes, I do know of female masculine presented doms that do have female subs that are more feminine presenting. Like, there are lesbian couples or lesbian partners or gay partners that do engage. So you see subs all in all different facets, especially. It's very normal. For me, I've never had a female sub. It's so interesting because I just love women so much. I don't see myself spanking them. You know what I mean? I don't see myself subjugating them. If I had a female sub, I'd probably still get a male sub to kind of like serve her. It's so strange. I think it's something about that. Like, I wouldn't even mind having 2 subs, a man and a woman. I've dom couples before, so that's nothing new. And I like the balanced scales of that. But to be honest, I would have a female sub, but it's so different. I would have to think about what that might look like, you know? What would that look like? Even intimacy. I mean, I am a dom nonetheless, right? So, so that'd be interesting, you know? And it makes me think if women would, what I find very common with male doms, I think that male doms like that tends to lead to sex, whereas with female doms it doesn't, it almost like never leads to sex, because it's all about withholding, and also too because we value all the physical foreplay. It's almost like your need is met, so you don't raise the penetration. But I feel like with male doms it's almost like, or anyone doms, we tend to get charged up, so it might definitely lead to sex. So male doms in particular, playing around in that sense tends to charge them up. Like doms, we get charged up even in just playing with our subjects. So with men, I know it tends to get them charged up, and most of them don't like to play or dominate you unless it leads to sex. But even then, it's like it's at their discretion. They're not really dominating you to have sex. It's almost like a form of control, power assertion, and it's almost like the submissive sometimes has to kind of like earn that. Like penetration is something that's, you know, delicate. They preserve their power, they save their daddy juice. This is at their discretion, you know what I mean? How your behavior goes determines if you get the reward of dick. So I know that is something that male dominants tend to engage. So, you know, when I think about what that would look like for me, I would have to figure that out, because I'm very feminine presenting, you know what I mean? And I even make my male my male subs very soft. I keep them a little bit delicate. I'm not even physical or aggressive with them. So, you know, what that would look like for a woman, I'm gonna think about that, guys. I'm gonna think about that, and I guess we'll have a part 2. I probably have to have a whole separate discussion. But I would say another reason to even have a female dom, let's say if I wasn't looking for one, but let's say another dom or a woman that's aspiring to be a dom, I think that even using that opportunity to train her, because if I dominate her, she'd pretty much know what to do with her own subjects. And obviously for me, I'm okay with multiple partners, so even in me dominating her, I would bring someone else in for her to dominate, because that's like also passive dominance, where, you know, where we have the main dom can sit down and watch everything play, and you can instruct him or her to assert their dominance over someone else. So that's even something. So even with me going in and working with couples, I would often tell the woman, the dom, how to dominate her man. So I figured even if I had a female sub, if I wanted to assert passive dominance, I would have my female sub assert her dominance over another male sub. So thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to answer those questions.
Yeah. So I would say don't forget to like and subscribe and drop your comments below. If anyone wants to whisper something to me, feel free to send me an email. I'm going to be getting this rolling, so, you know, I'll be dropping videos much more often. So I guess you guys can catch me whenever you can. But otherwise, follow me on social media, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of that. And I'll see you next time.